name is Kelly, and I will be representing the permanent side of the argument that the U.S. should institute a policy wherein all companies in federal contracts must buy American, that is only purchase American-made goods. The inherency that we currently face in the United States is that we import way more goods than we export. And because of this, it diminishes our economic growth with manufacturing and innovation. It increases our trade deficit and budgetary indebtedness. It's a threat to national security. And the goods that we are importing are typically produced in companies that have poor labor conditions. First, we'll explain the benefits of manufacturing compared to outsourcing with other countries. National Health Michelle, Buy American is smart, not stupid. The U.S. Consumer Protection Safety Commission's website provides a monthly list of products that are recalled, and month after month, more than 90% are made in China. Manufacturing is also critical to our national defense. American manufacturers supply the military with essentials needed to defend our country, including tanks, fighter jets, submarines, and other high-tech equipment. The U.S. cannot rely on other countries to supply its military because their interests may run counter to our own. America cannot risk being held hostage to foreign manufacturers when it comes to products that are essential to its national security and U.S. military. Finally, manufacturing generates exports. Manufactured goods make up more than 60% of the value of U.S. exports, double the level of 10 years ago. Basically, this whole summary that I just read basically says that the products that we are importing from other countries are not high quality. Because they are made with cheap labor, month after month, 90% are that are recalled are from countries such as China. Additionally, manufacturing, especially in regards to our military, really should be based within the United States. We don't really know nowadays who is on our side, who is our enemies, who is our friends. And to import goods from other countries, especially relating to our military, is basically putting our soldiers in harm who are defending our freedoms and our rights in other countries and putting their lives on the line every day. So it's really essential to have these goods manufactured within the United States. And finally, manufacturing is such a big part of the goods that we do export that we should continue to make it grow and have people find jobs within it. Rana, business and money. How made in the USA is making a comeback. U.S. factories increasingly have access to cheap energy thanks to oil and gas from the shale. For companies outside the U.S., it's the opposite. High global oil prices translate into costlier fuel for ships and planes, which means some labor savings from low-cost plants in China evaporate when goods are shipped thousands of miles. Workers from China to India are demanding and getting higher business paychecks. Manufacturing represents a whopping 67% of the private sector R&D spending, as well as 30% of the country's productivity growth. Every $1 of manufacturing activity returns $1.48 to the economy. Once again, it basically says because oil is such, a resource that is diminishing resources, that, because the U.S. does have access to it, other countries are paying a higher price than the U.S. would be. So the shipping costs coming from halfway across the other side of the world to America is raising the prices, as well as workers realizing their rights in these other countries. They're starting to demand bigger paychecks, which is continuously rising the cost of goods there. So while some may say that U.S. American-made goods are costlier, this gap is slowly narrowing because of these things. And once again, manufacturing is such a big part of our economy. It's really essential, since every dollar that is through manufacturing does return $1.48 to the economy. And although it may seem like a small number, it really does go far in the long run. 55 reasons why you should buy products that are made in America. More than $500 billion that could have gone to U.S. workers, U.S. businesses, went overseas instead. We have lost tens of thousands of businesses, millions of jobs, and trillions of dollars to national wealth. Cutting the U.S. trade deficit in half would create 5 million more jobs in the U.S. According to the Economic Policy Institute, America is losing 500,000 jobs to China every single year. The United States spends about $4 on goods and services from China for every $1 that China spends on goods and services from the United States. This once again highlights how important it is that there's such an imbalance of trade and exports and imports between the United States and countries such as China, especially China in particular. We're not seeing the same reciprocation because our manufacturing still really needs to develop because they are producing such cheap goods there. And it's causing our country to become more and more in debt to China with each passing year. And that's clearly not good for our economic standings, especially as a world leader. As far as businesses, because of this, and we buying good, cheap goods from China, millions don't have jobs. Thousands of businesses that were started have shut stores because of this. And it's really essential for us Americans to stay together and really try and push ourselves and support each other in these times of economic distress. Now we will discuss the humanitarian side of the issue and how child labor is being used to produce products overseas that U.S. consumers can buy. China Labor Watch carried out 3 investigations during the months of June and July 2012. During the investigation, 7 children, all of them are under the age of 16, were found working in the same department as our investigators. Our research indicates that student workers amount to 80% of the factory workforce. There may have been up to 50 to 100 children working in the factory, and these children were under the same harsh conditions as adult workers, but were paid only 70% of the wages when compared to with formal employees. The workers toiled 11 hours per day, including 3 to 5 hours of forced overtime, 6 days per week, 26 to 28 days per month. LG's name has been removed from their website and will take legal action if necessary to protect LG's reputation. Thus, in conclusion, even though they only found 7 children working there, it shouldn't matter how many. Any harsh working condition is not acceptable, especially companies such as LG. Nobody wants to be having that type of reputation of having children labor and poor labor as a reflection of their company, which is why it's important to instill these jobs in America with correct working conditions, paying American workers the correct price, continuously to stimulate our economy, and putting money back where it belongs. So thus, in conclusion, the affirmative stands strong that the U.S. should institute a policy where all companies and federal contracts must buy American. We're all Americans here. We need to stand by our country and our businesses and our people.
So you finished mentioning at the end of your speech that we need to start putting the American money back to Americans, like the price that we need to start paying them the price that they should be paid, but you didn't give examples of American workers, you did give examples of China, which was a great investigation, and great to open our eyes to that, but then you said after all that we need to start putting the money back to Americans, but you were talking about China, U.S. workers. That was just my first question. I don't know if you want to answer that?
Yeah. Well, as I said before in the Rhode article, every $1 manufacturing activity returns $1.48 to the U.S. So by having that being spent on American businesses, American goods, it is going to help lower our trade deficit.
That doesn't answer my question. Okay, I have another question. Do you agree that manufacturing jobs are the foundation of our economy?
Yes, I do. As I said before, 67% of private sector research and development spending, as well as 30% of the country's productivity growth is within manufacturing, so it is moving.
Okay, thank you. If they are the foundation and they are declining, how is the economy still functioning? The
economy is still functioning because there is a trend that is starting, as we'll discuss later on, with American businesses, that they are starting to realize how important it is to have made in America as a tagline, and how, although it is a globalized economy, manufacturing is promoting.
Okay, are you okay with paying more for a product?
If I know that $1.40.
Are you okay with paying more for a product?
If it's better quality, since it's.
Yes or no question. Are you okay with
Yes, I am. because-
Okay, thank you. So does that mean you're okay with spending more on the product than buying fewer products for the same amount of your hard-earned money?
If I don't have to worry about my.
Okay, so just yes or no question?
Yes.
Okay, so wouldn't you agree that the more you buy, the more money is being placed into the economy as opposed to just a big lump sum into one product? Yes or no?
No, I don't agree.
Oh, okay, so,
I believe that.
I'm just asking yes or no questions, okay? Because you had your shine. So I'm just trying to, because you did mention about a lot of the manufacturers. So I'm just thinking of it in the sense of, if there are less products being made, doesn't that mean that there will be a downhill production?
Can you repeat that one more time?
If there are less products being made because we're paying so much money towards, products that are made within this country, doesn't that mean there will be a downhill in production? Meaning
Well,
that-
if more parts of,
Yes, sir.
there is a multiplier effect of manufacturing jobs. Every 100 steel or automatic jobs will actually create 400, 500 new jobs.
So, hi, my name is Kayla Rumble, and I'm representing the negative side, and we will be responding to the affirmative plan to promote buying American. So, the first point that they made was response to the quality and the security, and their solution to that was, having purely made American products. However, when you have a purely American-made product, you can't really, have something like that. Burroughs, which has no date unfortunately, but country of origin and globalization age, it gives the example of a car, and how in a car factory you might have a whole piece that says it's made in America, but each tiny individual piece comes from another country. Or even the workers, it might be based in an American factory, but you're importing and exporting these goods. And because of globalization, while the American and foreign automakers play up this made in America idea, they may not be the best strategies for companies targeting abroad. It might be, where they're getting these resources from and also where they're shipping these cars or other products out to. So there's really no, response to quality or service. And I'm not saying you have to sacrifice security for, service and trading with other goods, but we've really reached that point where we can't do that anymore. We have this trade set up and globalization's already made that point. The second point that they've made is in response to the oil and the workers and the already narrowing gap. In Lewis 2011, it says that we don't really have those resources to say we're going to completely buy from America. We don't have that oil just kind of rolling around. We have oil, obviously, but to supply what the country needs and to supply what families would need, our homes would be stripped virtually bare of telephones, televisions, toasters, and other electronics. And maybe many of our favorite foods and toys and things that we consider either luxury or necessity would be gone because we don't have those resources. We have a huge reduction in our standard of living because we wouldn't have access to those goods. We wouldn't have, especially because of their cost and because they come from other countries. The gap is already moving closer, and in Furuhar, 2013, it says that Made in the USA is already making this comeback. So their inherent problem of, this we need to buy American is kind of coming on its own. It's kind of the solutions arriving. But I don't think we need to have a strict plan to have these companies buy what, strictly from America. It seems impossible, it seems illogical, and it's kind of, climbing out of the recession, the U.S. has already seen this manufacturing growth happening. And, our debt is increasing and people don't have jobs, but when you come to the idea, this cycle, and in our process we brought up this idea of, you have this cheap labor, or you have this cheap product, and because you bought this cheap product, you have the opportunity now to buy more products. And those more products are going to need somebody to make them. And those people who are going to make them are going to have jobs. But if you're going to sacrifice having one expensive item and spending all your money towards that one item, what's going to happen to those products that you have that need to be made and bought? The people who make those are going to lose their jobs, and the cycle is going to continue. So not necessarily having this one specific made in America stipulation, it's not necessarily going to fix the entire problem like that in magic. So as we know in Lewis 2011, an efficient producer creates the most valuable goods with the least possible expense and selling those items at lower prices than the competitors who are efficient. A country benefits when its manufacturers become more efficient. So the more efficient that we are in making those products, and the more efficient we are in buying those products, that is when we'll have success and we'll be able to create more jobs. Whether it's here, whether it's in China, whether it's on the moon, that's what we'll be able to do. As for the quality, they can be made in China, they can be made here. It's just a matter of, people will buy something that's good quality. And if you have something that's good quality made in America and something that's good quality made in China, how are you going to, which one would you choose? Whichever one's cheaper. To the degree of child labor, and the humanitarian, I thought we had time. To the degree of child labor. So, out of curiosity, how many people living in those countries are being offered green cards? In Shenzhen, 2013, Stossel, he says, the workers aren't abused. The name itself considers abuse of a sweatshop, but they're choosing their best of a bunch of options. They're not given the opportunity to immigrate or leave their country for these opportunities. And in Shenzhen 2013, it shows that the women encountered there were more motivated to improve themselves when they're in an urban life rather than a rural life. They are more likely to value staying in the city than the migration because they've become urban and their children know nothing else. We can't plant fields now. No agrees another. We can't go back. To take away the jobs from the workers wouldn't make their lives better off because they aren't working. Because if they aren't working in the factories, it would make their lives worse and their children's lives worse because they have no way of supporting themselves in those fields that they were already taken out of. And furthermore, the women and children who are working in those factories are actually becoming better educated and more aware of their rights. In Shenzhen 2013, it shows that there have been strikes and labor shortages that are hitting the markets, or the manufacturing, are driving up their wages, and that's why a lot of those companies are actually getting strikes sent against them, and the factories are being forced to improve their conditions. So furthermore, a huge part of the history of mankind is an increase in the division of labor. It's a response, that the world is so globalized now that, we can't move towards strictly isolating American products anymore. The gap is already closing between the Chinese and the other foreign exports, and the cycle of spending less will really, really affect manufacturing as much as it is a foundation. So even if it is a foundation, it is the only foundation, that cycle of spending more on one product will really pull out the manufacturing aspect again. And child labor, although it's very easy to say that, this is causing problems here, this is causing problems there because of our selfishness, at the same time, it says no one's going to like the person who fires them from their job. And to pull them out of the multinational sweatshops, which are usually the best alternative according to Stossel, would really hurt the people more than it would help. And that's why the United States disagrees with their plans. The economy is already kind of moving into lifting itself up from the recession, and it does not need to be strictly American products bought. It would actually hurt more than help.
Keila, you said that globalization is the reason why we cannot only buy American-made products. So should we not take part in globalization as a country?
I feel like it's kind of impossible at this point. We're already so heavily tied, and we're such a superpower that pulling out would not only collapse our economy, but would also collapse the global economy.
So you believe in taking part in something that's not working efficiently?
I believe that pulling out would probably make it worse.
Okay, thank you. Can we continue to buy cheap goods and lower the nation's trade deficit at the same time?
I think that if you continue, I think yes. Buying cheap goods will help promote more buying and more spending.
Okay. Do you agree with the fact that American businesses will collapse if we continue to purchase cheap goods abroad?
No.
Why?
Because as I pointed out earlier, you're buying, if you go for the more expensive, if you go for the more expensive items, you're going to have less to spend later, and then where's your money?
Okay, thank you. Are you okay with China owning most of our debt?
According to,
Yes or no?
well, I gotta answer the question. All right, answer.
Well, you know the answer. If the quality is so good, why are the Chinese products recalled every year?
Thank you. Cheap is good. Cheap. Wait, what?
Okay, next question. Why are strikes happening if things are so great at these factories abroad?
Strikes are happening because the women are becoming more informed of what they're not being given. So as they are happening, more company owners are actually allowing
Okay,
them
thank you.
to get better.
Thank you. But didn't you say that these women are happy working in these factories?
They're happy after participating in something they know will better their lives.
But they are striking against their work conditions.
Yeah, participating in the strike is bettering their lives, and they now have that knowledge that they wouldn't have had on the farm.
Okay, do you think that the working conditions that these women are subjected to fair?
The working conditions that they were known to be subjected to were not fair, but before, that was before. After these strikes and after they become educated because of the lives they've lived and because of the money they've received, they've been able to pick themselves up and have better working conditions.
Okay, thank you. Would you be fine working in the poor conditions described in Girl Power?
Can you repeat that again?
Would you be fine working in the poor conditions described in the Girl Power article, yes or no?
40 seconds.
I am an American citizen and I've never had that.
Yes
I've never
or
had
no?
that.
Yes or no?
How many seconds do you want?
Thank you.
My name is Annie Russian, and I will be conducting the second affirmative. I'm first going to go over a few points that my previous partner did not address. The first being how I'm going to illustrate how to help achieve sustained economic recovery, our country needs a consumer-led commitment to buy American-made products, which supports American manufacturing jobs and employment. More American manufacturing jobs not only reduce the unemployment rate, but also expand the tax base to pay for benefits like Medicare and Social Security. We have a giant $2 trillion cumulative trade deficit with China, and we also have a huge budgetary deficit that we have yet to make an impact on. And in order to address this concern, we need greater monetary funds. Buying American will reduce our trade deficit, support higher tax base, and achieve greater economic growth. Because by buying American, we are directly putting money into our own economy. It's not going abroad where it's just going to be taken by China and other international countries. Last 2 years, the U.S. has lost approximately $2 trillion cumulative trade deficits with China alone. If the forfeited production took place in the U.S., it would have generated $600 billion in national revenue and created millions of jobs in the U.S., according to Senator. Also, I'd like to explain why it's important that leading companies are making their products in America and the positive effect it has on consumers. The negative said that, there's no doubt that at this stage that Made by American is making a comeback. We see in the statistics from Carl Franzen's article that a study found that Chinese consumers are also willing to pay more for American products, just as Americans are willing to pay more for American products. Thus, this means it's not a matter of getting the U.S. public on board to get legislation passed for domestic corporations to buy only American. We're already on board, we're already ready and willing to do so. I would also like to briefly summarize what has previously been stated. Buying American goods is a vital necessary choice to increase our economic growth because it creates jobs at home, both primary and secondary. Businesses save on shipping costs when outsourcing. The increased manufacturing at home causes greater innovation, and increases required skills, which leads to an increase in education, which makes us a stronger country as a whole. It also generates exports that can contribute to cutting our extremely large debt. Because of the extremely large debt, trade deficit stifles economic growth. It also will help us maintain military and national security. The negative addressed the fact that it's impossible for us to buy or create solely American products because we don't have the resources. That's exactly the point. The reason we don't have the resources is because we're outsourcing and we're lowering our abilities to manufacture at home. If we stop this and began to reassert our domestic manufacturing, we would be able to acquire the resources, the skills, and innovation to become able to manufacture our own goods. They address the fact that making American goods is making a comeback, but the fact is that it's not coming soon enough. We're already in a huge deficit, as I previously stated, with international countries. We have a huge budgetary issue, so we need this to take place now because we need to do something to stop the money issues. Debt is increasing, and there's more unemployment, as they addressed. And they addressed the fact that cheap products purchased allows you to buy more products, which cycles more jobs. But buying that one expensive product puts money directly back into the American economy, whereas if you buy the cheap product abroad, it's going abroad. If you buy it home, maybe for a little bit of higher cost, it's going directly into our own economy. So we must look past the initial price. The negative side is only looking at the direct point, and we need to see the long-term effects. If we continue to buy abroad, we're going to continue to stagnate our economic growth, our manufacturing, we'll have less innovation, lower education levels, lower standard of living, which will weaken us as the international, political, social, and economic leader that we are.
3 minutes.
The time frame is in existence now. We have already and continue to have an extremely large deficit, vast budgetary indebtedness. The probability of solely buying American-made goods is extremely high. Our democracy allows for people to push for legislation vital to their existence. As more and more people lose their livelihoods and standards of living to foreign workers, it will become an extremely strong and powerful voice able to push for such legislation. The reason being is because many Americans are up to their eyeballs in debt. Their incomes are not keeping up with rising prices, and they find themselves scratching and clawing just to make it from month to month. We need to do something to stop this now before it gets even more out of hand. In regards to the maltreatment of labor workers abroad, it's a poor choice to continue to funnel money into something that we blatantly know is going against human rights that we agree to in this country. If we buy solely American-made goods, we know for a fact that our government can and will make sure that workers' rights are addressed and protected, whereas if we continue to just give money abroad, yes, maybe it's helping them out a little bit, but not in the long run, and it's still, we have no guarantee that they are actually getting respectable working conditions. They also spoke how somehow we could combine security with working internationally to get our goods. Security is something that you can't take lightly. It's something that you cannot just throw caution to the wind. It's something that needs to be addressed in this post-9/11 world. And we must make sure that our security and national defense is a first priority above maintaining economic trade partners with other countries. Buying American will help ensure that American manufacturing survives and grows in the global economy. This is because as we continue to buy American, we must create more strategies, more jobs, to be able to funnel the resources into our nation.
20 seconds.
to go into our nation. And also, that way there will be enough jobs for everyone to have.
Okay, our first question is, what does your plan suggest that foreign workers do if they aren't working in the factories?
What is my plan to suggest?
What is their plan? Like, what else can they do besides working in the factories if they're not working in the factories, considering that's what they've grown up knowing to do?
We're not suggesting the factories are closed.
And what exactly are you
We're
suggesting?
suggesting that we would simply no longer purchase from them.
Okay, what if, wouldn't reducing this cause them to close the sweatshops because the unemployment of workers who are very dependent on these jobs?
There's still going to be plenty of other countries around the world that are going to be desiring their products and goods,
Like what kind of countries?
like every other country except America.
Okay. Wouldn't that be decreasing their standard of living?
That would not be, there's no like scientific research or anything that could even see if it would decrease.
How do you know that?
How do I know?
How do you know that there's no scientific research?
There were not.
Are you a scientist?
There was not any research.
All right, next question.
Never mind.
Okay. So then are you saying that American lives are more important than the foreign workers' lives?
No. I'm
What?
not saying that.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that everyone's lives are equally important, but this is about the productivity and efficiency and livelihood of the United States.
Okay. Moving on to debt. If we're cycling through our own money and our own economy, how does that solve our own debt?
Because we will not be giving money to foreign countries where we'll grow to be more in debt towards them, where the trade deficit will continue to rise and we'll continue to have to pay money to them.
Okay. Where would we get the resources to manufacture everything domestically?
We would get them from ourselves. We would have to grow innovation and technology.
What kind of technology?
Technology such as just
Do you have a specific plan that you think we could utilize?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Where would we get the resources to manufacture everything that is domestic?
We have multiple resources here on our own. It's just the fact that we are choosing to overlook them, choosing not to go about making them stronger because we're choosing to search for
Okay, thank you. Technology will cost more, wouldn't you agree?
Technology might cost more in the short term, but you have to look at the long term effects.
Okay, what kind
Yep.
of
Alright, my name is Sophia Johnson, and I will be starting the second negative construction. So, to start off with second negative construction, I'd like to extend all previous arguments made. And I'd like to start with the first part is, what did you have to buy American Lewis 2011? So, the affirmative side said that we would eventually have the resources to be able to sustain ourselves in this country, but I would like to say that it is not true, because we have, as a nation, if we had the ability to create everything that we use now, we would have done that a long time ago. We are connected with the rest of the world and we use their resources because we need them. And if we stop using them, we're not going to be able to live the way we do. Like Kayla said before, virtually, our homes will be stripped virtually bare of telephones, televisions, toasters, and basically everything else we can think of. You'd be surprised at how many of your products in your homes come from places abroad that would not be able to come from that we would not be able to get from America. I know they made a specific point in this article about diamonds. We don't have any diamond mines in America, and you might say that we could live without diamonds. That's just one small example of the vast majority of things that we need. Also, here's an example from Mark Cresco, 53, a publicist recently spent $10 on a pair of sandal salad tongs made in America, which he tracked down in the restaurant supplies store after rejecting 99 cent foreign-made tongs. It's just another example of how much more expensive these goods are going to cost. The next card is country of origin and globalization age. What does Made in America mean? And there's no date on this one, but this one really stresses the fact that there's no such thing that everything like Made in America anymore. If you look, like Kayla said, in a car engine, there's always going to be some small certain pieces that are come from America. There's going to be always a percentage of content that has come from foreign sources. Globalization has put us at such a point where it is almost impossible to have a product that is completely and 100% American made. Also, a point in this card is made is anti-American feelings where they exist are deeply angered. When such views are entrenched, each clever marketers have a tough time turning them around. This is basically saying that people have trouble buying things that are American. For some reason, there's a lot of anti-American feelings, and no matter how much advertising there is done, it's really hard to turn people's opinions and views the opposite way. Previous research had confirmed that animosity towards a country affects consumers' willingness to buy its products. Researchers also know these actions are powerful even when inaccurate. So basically, no matter how much advertising you do, no matter how many times you say that Made in America is going to help us, people are just not going to buy it. They're not going to listen to you, they're not going to buy your products, jobs are going to go down, production is going to go down, and basically we're in the worst place we were before. Next card, the stupidity of Buy American, Stossel. He says, Buy American is a dumb idea. It would not only not create prosperity, it would cost jobs and make us all poor. We should buy things when they're cheapest. That frees up more resources to buy other things, and other Americans get jobs to produce these things. So basically, things that are more expensive, then we're going to buy less of them. How many times are you going to go out if you you go to a store, you're not going to buy a shirt that's $100 a bunch of times. But if you go into a store and you see, oh, it's a $5 shirt, I'm going to buy a lot of them. That's going to create prosperity. That's going to create more jobs. That's going to help those people in the factories get more hours, get more money, and make their standard of living better for them and their families. That's going to go across the whole America, because you're saying that manufacturing is the foundation of our economy. So then, when more people, that's not even true though. They're choosing, okay, then we're going to talk about coffee. Another example is that if you pay more for coffee, you'll have to buy less of something else. So basically, another product that is going to be buying less of is continuously reiterating the point that when things are more expensive, then we're going to buy less of them. In the next card, Girl Power 2013, I would also like to point out that the card The Affirmative Views, China Labor Watch, was published in 2012, so our card is more recent, which also says that the women have migrated to the factory towns, have become better educated and more aware of their rights. It's been liberating, empowering, both personally and financially. So the women she encountered were more motivated to improve themselves and more likely to value migration for its life-changing possibilities. Basically, people who are working in the sweatshops, they might not have the best conditions, they might not have the best wages, but we have to realize that we cannot compare what's happening there to what's happening in America. The affirmative asked the question to Kayla, would she want to work in a sweatshop? Well, she does not know what it's like to be in those conditions. In America, sweatshops of that nature are really not something we have to deal with on an everyday basis. And unfortunately, in developing countries, it is a reality. It is something that is there. But if you take those sweatshops away, if you take away U.S. consumption out of all of these sweatshops, you're going to see a dramatic decrease in the amount of production that's happening. America is one of the main people that takes from these sweatshops. The amount of consumption is incredibly high. And once you take out all of U.S. consumption, you're making these people in a much worse situation. Unfortunately, it's reality. But we have to understand that taking the people out of these sweatshops, that closing down these sweatshops, is going to put them in jobs that are paying less wages, have worse conditions. And then they're going to have less ability to feed their family, less houses they can go, worse housing conditions they can be in. And in the long run and in the short run, it's going to be a bad idea. Also, I would like to reiterate the fact that we do not have the amount, that we don't have the amount of resources, like I said earlier, to have things that we bought in America. And when you buy more expensive things, you might sacrifice what you need. So how are we going to survive? In the long run, all of the things that we're doing, if you keep buying American, is going to make our economy in a worse position. We really cannot afford to buy all American. We need to be going abroad. The main overarching point of the whole thing is that globalization is a part of our world. It's irreversible. And do we really want to become an isolated country where we produce everything within our boundaries? We're meant to be connected as human beings. The affirmative is suggesting that we stay all within America, but how does that, we cannot say that you can't communicate with other people, you can't use their resources, you can't have businesses. National boundaries are gone, everyone is connected. We need to stay connected to the rest of the world. And if we don't stay connected to the rest of the world, our economy is going to go down. People are not going to have as good relations with us as we should. And things might not be ideal now, but if we work as a nation together to help the jobs and other unemployment programs, we will improve. But right now, isolating ourselves, buying only American, making goods more expensive, taking people out of the sweatshops is going to severely hurt our economy, severely hurt the people in developing nations, and overall make the world a much worse place.
20 seconds.
Overall, in conclusion, I would like to say that buying America is a dumb idea. We need to realize that we need to buy products from other sweatshops and other companies and other places. We need to use the sweatshops no matter how bad the conditions can be. Maybe we need to work with sweatshops to better the conditions, to make better wages. But we can all think of those things after we accept the fact that buying American is a bad idea.
Hey, how you doing today? It was kind of nice for you to say how Americans need resources from other countries. So are you okay with, getting resources from people making that, products are in the poor conditions? Do you accept that as a reality? Earlier, you said, it's a reality to have sweatshops and stuff. So will you be fine with being in that condition as the women and the workers that are working in?
Well, I addressed that question earlier.
Can you say me?
When I
You didn't answer the question. I'm saying, do you not know that these conditions or these resources that Americans are getting from other countries come from hard conditions and poor conditions?
Wait, can you rephrase your question anymore?
I'll move on because you are not on point. Next, don't you want to increase your American values, American patriotism with your own country? So why would you want resources and not? Would you not? Thanks so much.
Why would I not want resources?
No, then don't you want to increase patriotism in America?
Well, there's many other ways to increase patriotism besides, just having things like in America. You don't only need to be buying goods in America to increase patriotism.
Can you have your list up? Those places are there. Do you buy American products? Alex and Honey, they're from America, so with that, he kind of contradicted himself.
But I never said that buying products made in America was a bad thing, but not all products should be made in America.
Wait. Sorry.
Also, passing on these Russian silver.
I would buy U.S. goods, put our economy in a worse position. I would buy U.S. goods, put our economy in a worse position.
Because when we buy U.S. goods, we don't have the resources, the prices are going to go up, and we're going to be able to buy less of them, therefore decreasing manufacturing, and then it's decreasing the amount of production that's made.
You said that if the U.S.
20 seconds.
You said that if we help others, the U.S. will improve. How?
If the what?
You said that if we help the U.S., if we help others, we are helping the U.S. Okay, you said that if we help others, the U.S. will improve. How's that?
Time. Okay, do I have to use myself again? Alright, so I'm Kelly Kyle again, and I am not just here to tell you why we should win, I'm telling you why we did win. So I'm going to address it in 3 different ways. I'm going to look at magnitude, probability, and the time frame. And first off, the magnitude of the situation is that the costs of what they're asking, their plan is asking for, is not, it's out, we don't have enough for that. If we change what we're doing, then we'll not only cause people in other countries harm by losing their jobs, we will be changing our way of life in a way that's going to impact our lives and our economy. We have a high standard of living. It's kind of inevitable. It's you know, we live extensively. We cannot isolate the economy. We cannot isolate ourselves from these trade relations. There is a heavy political and socioeconomic. We're all interconnected through globalization. So we need to stay connected. As Sophia said, it's irreversible at this point. And in the short term and in the long term, we don't have these resources. We don't have the way to cover what we need and what we want. Go ahead and tell Americans that they can't have their Alex and Annies. See how well that works out for you. And tell people, as Sophia said, you know, the anti-American feelings that are deeply anchored, you know, tell the people that they're going to buy these products from us and we're going to outsource. If you want to keep globalization that way, that we're giving products outwards, tell all those people to buy, you know, that this American-made car and see how they feel about that. It's just a part of the way of life that the magnitude of what they're asking just isn't going to happen. Probably now, probably never, probably in the long term. We just don't have those resources. The money, again, that cycle that I talked about before and that Sophia reaffirmed for us is that cycle of buying and spending the money that you'll have on this more expensive product. I'm tripping up my words here. So you have that extra money that you have from buying those cheap products. You're not going to have that. You're not going to have that money to cycle back into the economy. You're not going to get this magic money from somewhere else and put it so that we can decrease our debt, as the affirmative plan is saying. You might not be putting it into another country, but you have more on your hands that you can use to spend on some American products, and you can use to spend on some foreign products. We don't have to make the choice to buy solely American. We don't have to make the choice to buy everything, have these companies pick everything American, which I already explained before, is not even possible because you don't have a solely American-made product. And even if you did, you don't have to make that decision. You can choose to have something bought far, you can choose to have something bought away, but cutting off that complete international tie, it just isn't feasible, it isn't probable, it's not going to happen. It's also pushing us into, like I said, that isolation, which that reduction of standard of living is going to decrease for the outsourced laborers. If we pull our production from them, we pull our business from them, obviously jobs are going to be lost. You can't say that they're not. Maybe whole companies won't shut down, but those jobs are going to be lost, which means more people are going to be looking for work, which means more people are going to settle for a lower wage or a lower condition, because when if you find a job, if you find money, hey, that's great, I have a source of income, it doesn't matter. When you're at that level of poverty, it won't matter anymore. It won't matter if you have this demand for a better working condition. A factory owner is going to see that and they're going to say, 1 minute, they're going to say, too bad, go somewhere else, and then you're not going to be able to find that job, and those standard of livings for them are going to go down. So once again, our standard of living is going to go down. People are not going to want to make that change. This plan is going to collapse because of the magnitude of trying to change that. It's probably not going to happen anyway because you can't have an isolated country at this point, especially because we're a superpower. And in the time frame, it wouldn't work long term, in the sense that the cycle of what they're putting money back into the economy isn't going to work out as they're planning. You don't have that money. You won't have that money if you're spending it on more expensive products. And in the short term, it might seem like it will be, but it's just not. So, it's time. I have 10 seconds. It's not because you're going to have to try to get the popular opinion on your side to chop their ideas down to bare essentials. And who says that they won't sacrifice the Alex and Ani 3 square meals a day, which will lead to health problems.
We totally stand by that companies with federal contracts should buy American-made products. The magnitude of this is extremely huge. If we continue going down this path of continuing importing way more than we are exporting, we're going to continue to be a slave in debt to China. China owns so much of our debt that we cannot possibly come out of it unless we start channeling our funds and our resources into the manufacturing districts of our country. The time frame is in existence now. As the negative side already brought up, we are, bringing back, we are reviving Made in America. But how much further with this legislation will we be able to push ourselves, to continue to better ourselves as a country? This is about the long term. Although we might lose money, businesses might lose money now, in the long term, it's going to continuously stimulate our economy. It's going to lower our debt that we have, and basically definitely help our budgetary indebtedness. And the probability of solely buying American-made goods is extremely high, because as the negative team has addressed, it's basically, as legislation stands in the article that they quoted from, country of origin, in relation to cars, as current legislation stands, as long as America contributes the majority of the production, 15% is allowed to be from another country. We are basing our argument off current legislation. If the current legislation that is currently in place says that 15% of the product is allowed to be from another country and still considered made in America, then that is what we will consider made in America. The large majority of that is American. As they said, we are in a globalized age. There are some resources that we may not have, but because the legislation states 15%, that is how we are going forward. The negative side also addressed that we really don't have resources in the Lewis article. But as I said in my first constructive, in the Fura article, we have access to oil and cheap energy because of the shale boom. With this as our foundation, we are able to push these cheap energy sources with oil and gas into our manufacturing firms. And with that, we are allowed to grow in innovation and advance. As my partner stated before, our education in these industries are growing because we are advancing technologically, and it's helping us flourish as a country. And as the negative team stated before, yeah, there are anti-American feelings towards the government because of media and whatnot. But the negative team also stated, if it doesn't function, it won't sell well. Well, if American-made products are, not being recalled in our markets, 90% is from China. If it's functioning well, other countries are going to buy it. It doesn't matter if it's made in America. Apple phones are made in America, designed in California, and people still buy it. If that's what they want, they'll buy it. They also quoted the stupidity of buying American article, and honestly, his credibility, other than only having a TV show on Fox, I don't know what his degree is, so anything that they brought up with that article, I do not believe is credible. You keep saying that we can't afford to buy American because the prices are high, but realistically, we also can't afford our debt. By having all American products being produced, we're not just focusing on the American consumer, we're focusing worldwide. We're going to have more products made in America that will be able to be sent overseas, as well as continue to have a higher standard of living. It's not going to decrease. It's clear that education, in these firms you're going to have a 2-year degree by now. So it's going to continuously flourish, more jobs, less unemployment, the debt ceiling is closed, and is essential to support American markets. So with that in closing, we highly support the current legislation as it stands and the legislation that is heard for that companies with federal contracts must buy American to show our patriotism to our country and to support our fellow Americans in this financial need.
Okay, to start off the second negative rebuttal speech, I would like to boil it down to the main 3 points that our side is going to try to win. The first point, Buy American will not help boost the economy or create more prosperity in the U.S. The goods are going to become more expensive. The amount of production will decrease because of the higher prices, and people can have bad attitudes towards American-made products. All of these points are basically saying that production, manufacturing, is going to decrease. We do not have the resources to make all the products that we do now. The prices are going to go up, people are going to buy less of them, manufacturing is going to go down, people are going to become unemployed even though they were employed before with these manufacturing jobs, they're not producing as much. They're going to have less wages, they're not going to be able to support their families. Second point, Buy American would decrease our standard of living. Like I said before, we do not have the resources to maintain our lifestyle. We will not be able to produce what we have now. Like Kayla said, a lot of our products that we have in our households that we use every day are made outside of the U.S., or at least a percentage of them are. I think it'd be really hard to tell the majority of Americans that what you have now, you cannot have anymore because we're all buying in America. Sure, there can be innovation, but we do not have the natural resources, the natural ability to produce these goods, to produce these products. The third point is that Buy American would hurt people in developing countries. These people, like we said, are dependent on these jobs. It is their best option. I don't think the affirmative team is planning on going to all those countries and offering them all green cards and better jobs. They're providing no better plan. They're not saying where we should go. The affirmative team said that China owns so much of our debt, but then in the process, they said that other countries would just help the sweatshops out. But if China has so much of our consumption and we all pulled out, how much would the production of the sweatshops go down? How much money would they lose? The workers in these sweatshops would get laid off, and once again, the whole cycle repeats. Also, they mentioned the fact that one of our authors was discreditable. The affirmative side had one person who was writing on a blog, and the China Labor Watch article had no author, so I don't think that point is valid. Also, they're not offering any alternatives to what we had. They said that, oh, we can just pull out, or we can just make American, but they're not saying what our plan should be. They're basically saying, well, everything will be happy and dandy once we all start buying American. Everything's going to go great. Our standard of living is going to stay there. The prices are going to be fine. Our economy is going to go up, but they offer no evidence or no proof this is actually going to happen. We're saying to you that we don't have the resources to do this. Prices are going to go up. We can see that in the salad tong example. We can see that in the fact that if you're not going to go pay, you're going to go to Starbucks and see that the prices all went up, you're not going to buy that coffee. You're going to go somewhere where the coffee is foreign made. People have to understand that buying American is going to make things more expensive, take away jobs, and overall, in the long term and the short term, make the economy go down. Buying American is an overall unattainable goal that will cause more harm than good. If we start to only buy American, we would not be the nation we are today. And I did not say that we could not buy no made in America products. Of course, it's always good to have a balance between what we're doing. There needs to be some things made in America. We need to have some kind of sufficient things going on. But it is not possible to have all of our goods made in America. Also, they said that 15% are allowed to be made in America. Then you basically are agreeing with what we said earlier, that it's impossible. That having that 15% is making the workers in sweatshops still work to make that 15%. And the 15% spread out for the whole country adds up to a lot of different goods in a lot of different places. So basically you're saying the whole time that arguing for against the sweatshops was a bad idea. It was a good idea to argue against the sweatshops. But by buying 15% of the products, you're basically saying that, okay, that 15% is okay, but the rest of it is not. Overall, buying American is extremely selfish because it shows how little interest America would have in supporting the rest of the world. And the way society is set up now helps the U.S. continue their standard of living and promotes prosperity outside of the U.S. Although the conditions might not be the greatest, we can work towards making them better, but it is helping people in other countries have a way of voting.
20 seconds.
We live in a globalized world, and reversing the effects of globalization cannot and should not be done. And that is the negative side.
I would like to state why the affirmative won and why U.S. companies should purchase American-made goods. U.S. companies, that is. We did not address the fact, we weren't saying that American citizens themselves were only allowed to purchase American goods. We just said companies. The negative stated that we don't have the resources to maintain our lifestyles if we solely focus on American-made goods. She stated perfectly that we also agree that a percentage of our products are made outside of America. The definition of American-made goods that we're using is the one that current legislation upholds, which said 15% can be foreign-made. Therefore, we will continue to help out the sweatshops abroad. We will continue to help out internationally while still purchasing domestic products. Companies, not people. We're referring to companies. She also stated that China and our debt. And we would like to note that this illustrates that Americans are growing more and more subject to the Chinese. If we continue this transfer of money, transfer of resources, basically transfer of power over to China, we'll eventually lose jobs at home, and this will cause us to go abroad to search for more jobs and opportunities. She also stated that we do not offer any alternatives. Our plan is to purchase American goods because it will cause greater innovation, increasing manufacturing, and increasing jobs. These increasing manufacturing and innovation will cause the jobs to be much more intellectually based. It will cause us to have a higher standard of education, which in turn allows the country to be more productive and have greater growth. She stated that buying U.S. is unattainable and it won't make us the country we are today. But what is the country we are today? It's a country where we are completely tied to we're completely in debt and tied to foreign countries such as China. We no longer reflect and uphold the economic, political, and social supremacy internationally that we did in the past because of this. In regards to the credibility of our sources, the negative said that our article's illustration of the Chinese sweatshops wasn't credible, but they illustrated the exact same realities of the sweatshops in their own article that they claimed was credible. How can we be taken seriously as a country if we continue to look at other countries for supplies? Oh, that was a question that they addressed. We have already begun to fix this process with our manufacturing being 60% of our exports, and we've begun to create new jobs for Americans. The whole thing is that we need to increase our manufacturing sector. By increasing the manufacturing sector, we increase innovation, we increase education. But the only way we can increase the manufacturing sector is if we uphold the necessity to buy American-made goods. The negative seems to think only short-term. Short-term thinking is what got us into this mess. We must look at the long-term effects of buying American. Yes, maybe in the short term we will have to go without certain aspects of our life, certain materials, certain goods. But in the long term, we will get all that back because we'll be growing our economy, we'll be growing our domestic jobs, domestic money, and eventually we'll all get it back. Quality should supersede quantity. They spoke a lot about finding the cheapest product, but the reality is, as we addressed in the very first statement, that the majority of the products being recalled are products abroad. If we focus on American-made goods, we have the legislation, we have the system in place to make sure that these goods are valuable, they're productive, they're safe, that they'll have a lot less of a probability of being recalled.
Was it?
They state that we think that we want to reverse the trends of globalization. We're not asking that. We're not talking about the American people solely purchasing American goods. We're simply stating that companies should buy American goods. Companies. We're not putting this on the American people. We're putting on these giant institutions. If we change our way of life. Our standard of living is currently selfish and is on a path of destruction as we continue to try to buy up the cheapest products abroad and just spend our money wastefully. Part of the way of life is wrong. America needs to look forward. We are innovators. We are the greatest country on earth, but it is not reflected by our current enormous debt. We need to control the debt. We need to control the trade deficit.
Time.
Thank you.